As I said at the top, 2 years ago, our guest was elected the 75th governor of the great state of North Carolina, and he joins us to talk about his first 2 years and what he hopes to accomplish. Governor Cooper, welcome to Education Matters.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you for doing this over the years. We appreciate it.
Well, the last time we had you on was actually at one of our live events right after you were sworn in, that sort of delayed swearing in. So we're glad to have you on set and for the show, for the full show. Got a lot to talk about. You just unveiled your proposed state budget for the next 2 years. You ran on education for governor. Your budget leads with it. So after 2 years as the chief executive, you still believe then education really is the key?
Education is the most important job of state government. We know that education is going to be the key to the future of our young people, our families, and our economy. We have put forward a strong budget that emphasizes public education, a 9.1% raise for teachers, including master's pay, making sure that teachers get the professional development they need, and also treating the whole child. We know that it's beyond education. That child walks through that door, can come from a bad home situation, and our teachers are charged with making sure that they learn. We've got to make sure that there are more school nurses and psychologists and counselors in our schools to help make sure that these kids get the education that they need. And we've got to support our teachers and lift that level of respect for them to where it should be.
Right. Well, you've got several items in your budget that to me, sort of fall under that category. Now, listen, education is always the single largest part of the state budget, and teacher pay and salaries and benefits, the lion's share of that. So what exactly are you calling for? So what's your goal? Like, where do you want to get to?
So what we want to be is #1 in the Southeast in the next few years, and we want to get to at least the national average in the next few years. That sends a strong message to teachers that we want you in this profession and we want to keep the good ones that we have. We've made some progress in teacher pay over the last few years, and I think a lot of that has to do with the strong education budgets that we have put before this General Assembly. We've raised the bar, and they have done some raises for teachers, particularly beginning teachers. But the problem has been that it hasn't been enough, #1. #2, veteran teachers have been left out. And we're putting forth a new salary schedule that provides an average of 9.1% for teacher salaries over the next 2 years. And we emphasize veteran teachers as well. It's easy to say you're going to give a 5% raise when you concentrate that 5% in the lower salaried beginning teachers. Right. But it gets harder to say you're going to give a 5% raise to veteran teachers who are making more money. So we don't want to just go for the facade of making sure that we provide for public education. We really want to provide for it. Right. So we're also working to restore master's pay, which rewards teachers for improving themselves. And right now, teachers, for example, when they take a personal leave day, they have to pay their own substitute. We're providing funding that ends that.
Yeah, that was something I saw. That was something that wasn't on my radar screen. I mean, I talked to a lot of teachers, and I have my sister's a 23-year teacher, so I have a constant focus group that I can have. So she tells me though, and she fits into that category of those veteran teachers that really over the last 10 years, she was going through that 15 to 23. Really wasn't a lot for her.
A plateau for them.
And she's also has decided to work on her master's degree now in spite of the fact that there's no benefit for it because she wants to improve.
We might be able to get there. There's some bipartisan things that we're hoping that we can get done this time, and that might be
the master's pay, I got to tell you, I feel like we argue back and forth on master's pay around, well, does it improve test scores or not? I spent 20 years in the private sector, and the idea of investing in your employees and if they wanted to continue their education was kind of like a given, and it also made them more, productive, loyal, retention, all that stuff. And it seems like for some reason we've gotten into this debate that, well, we can't do that for teachers because they're not the same, and it's that deprofessionalization thing.
It is, and I go into a lot of schools, and in every classroom I go into, I ask the kids, how many of you are thinking about being a teacher when you grow up? The kids that raise their hand, I lavish with praise. tell them that we need to get them into the teaching profession. And by the time that they graduate from college and become teachers, it's going to be a lot better for them, and we're going to restore that respect to this profession that it deserves. Unfortunately, there are a lot of hands when they're younger. The hands are fewer as we get into the high schools. And we know that we have a teacher pipeline problem that we have to fix. Not only are we struggling to find quality teachers and keep quality teachers, we're struggling to find permanent teachers at all.
Right.
We're thousands short. And so what we have to do is to create up the level of professionalism. I think the teaching fellows scholarships need to be significantly broader, need to cover more subjects. And when we have something like that in place that says to these students out here, okay, we think it is so important to have teachers in our schools that we're willing to pay 4 years of your college if you'll agree to teach at least 4 years in our public schools.
It's a really powerful message,
oh my
isn't it?
gosh, and the kind of students, I've been on interview panels for teaching fellows, the kind of students you get to apply are top of the class, the very kinds of students you want teaching our kids. And when you do that, you send a signal out there, even for the young people who don't get these scholarships. You've sent a signal that this is an important profession. This is something that your state cares about. It's something that we want you to get into.
Right.
So all these things that we can do, getting our business community to talk positively about what's happening in our public schools, it's easy to criticize. In our schools, the job is harder than ever because young people have to know more than ever to get the kinds of jobs that they have the opportunity to get today. So they need praise, they need support of our communities, they need to show that we need to show them that we respect them and care about them. Pay is just one of the ways.
Right. Well, that's the thing. We've got there's been an announced NCAA and other teacher groups have said they're going to come back for a second march in May. You were there last year. We took our cameras down there, and what we kept hearing from teachers was pay came up.
Yeah.
But it was really about lack of professional treatment and lack of resources. Let me shift gears a little bit with you on this. School support, you mentioned about sort of what students are going through. You've got a lot around school support and school safety, which also, I mean, they work together, but they're also separate issues. Talk to me a little bit about what you're looking for investment in terms of school nurses, school counselors, school psychologists, and also physical safety.
In one school district that I went into, they did a health assessment and sent information packets home with parents to fill out about their kids and things that they're concerned with. And they said for the first time since they'd been doing this, parents had more concerns about mental health issues than they did about physical health. We know that the funding cutbacks that have occurred over the last few years has caused local school systems, because they're dealing with less money, they're having to cut back on the number of counselors and teacher assistants and school nurses and psychologists and others that help with mental health issues and help those classroom teachers. Those classroom teachers were down in Raleigh talking about that as much as they were about teacher pay, because we need those people in the system. We also need to make sure that schools have access to resources so that they can make their schools safer, with making sure, unfortunately, we have issues with school shootings. We have to be ready for that. So there's equipment that they can use that, depending on each individual school, school resource officers I know we're talking about whether we use those or not, but I do believe that they play an important role, not only in keeping a school safe, but to be mentors and conduits for our kids, and they need better training. So there's a lot of things that we can do to help support those teachers.
Yeah, well, you're a dad like I am, and that's something when you send your daughters off to school. That's what you want them to be prepared for college and career, but you want them to be safe while they're there and be supported. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about school infrastructure, and then I want to get into talk about private school vouchers and also your commission on access to sound basic education. So please stick around. We'll be back with more with Governor Roy Cooper.
Education Matters is brought to you each week in part by Paragon Bank, serving others, enriching lives.